So one of the ways that your name still kept traveling around, because we see that, and I'm going to get into all of these problems, but one of the because like people only view voice actors as celebrities if they're either doing anime or like a really big Disney thing. One of the I would say sort of the main way I have seen your name pop up is not necessarily for the roles, but more so because you teach people and you give a lot of educational resource and you have students and stuff like that. Break me down, like how do you meet your voice acting students and how do you train them? What's that process?
Before I get into that, the fact that like a lot of people think that my students are like, they're these big name guys who must be making so much more money than me because they're in all the anime and they've got all the followers, and cartoons generally don't get quite as much of that. But what a lot of people don't recognize is, like, I would say for the anime work that they do with, like, I could work a quarter of the time that they do for an episode of an anime and still make like 5 times more than they do, just because the budgetary different and me being union, that's always just been kind of funny to me. Generally how a lot of that starts, though, because I was the first person to really come from the online scene and just get a TV, internationally airing union thing just so quickly, just like that. It was many, many years before anybody had ever done anything else like that. But even back then, I knew that I was not the best guy in the online community of voiceover back then. I was not even close.
Who was?
So, I could give a few different names. There's a dude who's doing really, really well right now named Philip Sacramento. He's from Northern Ireland. And then his friend Lucien Dodge is somebody that I also learned a lot from listening to as well. This dude who's a streamer, I'm sure at least some listeners will know of him. A guy named Germa actually used to be part of the Newgrounds voice acting club circle way back in the day. Okay. And this guy's blown up like mad. So there were all these people who, Josh Tomamoto, he's also real good back then. But again, I was the only one who was working in TV. So everything that I was learning from that side, I was sharing with these people and trying to boost them up and trying to get them ready to be able to break in if they ever had the opportunity. Because again, I knew I was not the best guy for that spot. So oftentimes, I'll see somebody either who I thought was better than me, or who has a ton of potential, and I'll go up to them and I'll say, hey, you know what? You got a lot of things going your way right now. You got a lot of things that you're doing real well. But hey, how about doing this? How about doing that? And then they'd gradually just keep coming back to me for more and more advice, and it would become very much that teacher, mentor, continued sort of thing.
So I guess I want to get into, I want to do sort of a micro dirty jobs thing here. I want to really get into it. So what is one exercise or one I guess direction coaching thing that you will do? Like what's the last thing you did?
Generally I find myself giving a lot of people guidance on auditions and how to make them stand out.
Okay.
I find that a lot of people, and I'm going to come up with just the most generic BS dialogue for this. A lot of people will have a character and they'll settle on a voice, like a cool sounding voice. Yeah. And they'll throw that at the audition lines. And let's say that there are three lines, 3 sentences that are something like, I am the great king of power, and I'm going to use all my power, and I'm going to destroy the world. And, me as a casting director, and as a performer, I'll hear that and be like, okay, you might have a pretty cool voice there, but you are bringing absolutely nothing interesting to the table as far as the choices you are making with that voice. It's boring, it's flat. I feel like you need your hand held to learn how to make something interesting out of that. So no matter how cool you sound, I'm not going to cast you. Bye. Next.
No, absolutely. I mean, so choices. So that's a big thing. And one thing I want to talk about, I'm assuming the majority of the people you have, I guess, grew up on some form of anime or some kind of video games, and that's why they're into it. And That has led to a slew of problems that we don't even realize that it's the reasoning for it. And we're going to get into all this. But so I guess, part of it is it's a subculture. Anime fandom is a subculture. Gaming is a subculture. And so what I want to ask is, how does culture affect your decisions as an actor?
Well, for one, when it comes to dealing with a lot of that, forget like choices. Beyond that, I got to sometimes teach these people how to sound more like people. Because when all they're listening to is people who enunciate the hell out of every word and everything's so intense, I'm just like, y'all got to learn to talk like a people.
No, I noticed that too, where I'll direct somebody and, you hear the audition and you're like, oh, maybe they're a little anime, maybe they need sweat. And then you call them up, you get in the set, hey, how you doing there? Like it's literally like that big. And I'm not going to name any names because I'm not trying to, but it's literally like, huh, well, all right then. Like, and it's so weird because the second gen VA scene, it's like, they all grow up, like, you can't tell them to act more like a person. That's not, like, that doesn't function as advice anymore because of the internet. They watch anime their whole goddamn life. Then they go talk to their friends who also watch anime their whole goddamn life. And they think that their friends are normal people. Like, they think that, oh, yeah, this is how you're supposed to talk. Because we look for how to talk based on who our friends are, who we think are cool. And so if you think all the other people who like anime are cool, then you're going to emulate that. And it's just this domino effect where everybody talks like, some casting director's vision in 1999 when he was getting paid barely a budget and didn't care. So it's also a bit of the drama kid inflection, because the other problem I notice is like every actor wants to sound really, really smart. I don't think you should be doing that right now. Like it's this where, like you said, this over enunciated. Do you notice that with like sort of the drama kid anime fan thing is like they always want to pretend to be smart, and if they dumb it down, they just go immediately to the vision of like how have you seen that break out?
I've never heard it worded that way, but I know exactly what you're talking about. And there's actually a similar thing with not all of them, but a lot of theater people as well, because they're taught to place so much emphasis on enunciation too. So their things will always be so breathy and so carefully spoken. And so it's a similar issue from a different kind of subculture. But what it all comes down to, go ahead.
Well, no, that's interesting, because it's a thing where I know what you're talking about. I know that issue, but what I see it as is the people I've worked with who mostly do theater, they might have a little bit of that, but they can turn it off in 2 seconds.
A lot of them can, yeah.
The people who grow up with anime, they can't do that. And every single read, it's like you said, it's breathy. It's, where are you going? Like at the you could fill a balloon with these reads. Like it's always air at that tail end. You know what I'm talking about? That tail end of every. And so I don't know how. Have you ever had a student who does that? And how did you tell them, hey, stop doing that? Or like, how did you work with them to get them to stop doing that? I guess.
What it largely became was telling them to actually take in other sources of like gain new influences that aren't just you watching anime all the time. Like actually have a conversation with somebody who's way older than you, from somebody who's not into the anime sort of stuff. Go watch a live action movie and you ain't gonna find anybody talking like that. Go watch a high school drama. Go watch all these different sources you can take in and use those influences, mimic them back, and listen to what you're saying and what they're saying and how different you sound.
So what you're saying is absolutely true. It's 100% true. But I think in this era of the internet, it's harder to get people to detach themselves from a thing when the internet enables obsession. And so I'm point blank. I tell people, like, I've had people come up to me and they ask, oh, how do you get the read so natural and whatever you're doing? And I tell them point blank, stop watching anime and stop talking to people who watch anime. Never watch it again. I be as extreme as possible, because think of it like dieting and fitness. If somebody's 350 pounds and they want to get down to 200, 190, whatever, dieting is not a temporary fix. It's a lifestyle change. And so it's like, the diet of the media you consume, that affects your brain just like the diet of Burger King and Arby's can affect, the big belly. So it's like, so that's my thing. But again, you can't be a director, you can't be a teacher and tell people stop talking to your friends and stop watching your cartoons. You're not allowed to do that anymore. So, or were you ever able to do that? Hold on.
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah. I can't really ever push it that far, but I try to dangle the carrot of, hey, you want to be in shiny popular thing, right? How about this shiny popular thing that isn't anime? And every now and then something like that really does catch on. I remember as obnoxious as some people in that fandom, not all, as some eventually got, like, I was happy when My Little Pony became a thing, because that got a lot of people finally interested in something that wasn't anime. Right. Everybody wanted to do stuff like that, and they were learning cartoony kind of and just not the whole like anime over-exaggerated type of deliveries. Although some characters are more zany, they got to learn comedic timing, which you can't really practice or learn through doing fan dubs all the time or from just studying anime. It's so rare that good comedic timing is a thing. That's fully dependent upon the writing and the direction. So to see people kind of learning this new style, it's always something that I'm happy to see. When people got really into The Last of Us, when the first one came out and people were starting to learn, wow, look at that grounded style of acting. I'll give people homework oftentimes. I'll say, watch this cartoon, watch this show, watch this interview with this human being a regular but interesting human being. That's a big part of what it is, just giving homework like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's also, it's weird because sometimes you show somebody like a more sort of realistic manner of speaking and they just call it monotone. I don't know if you've ever seen that. How do you ever have that where you'll like give a more stable read and they'll hit you with, oh, well, that sounds boring and monotone. Do you ever deal with that?
I can't remember a particular instance of it. It wouldn't surprise me if it's happened once or twice, but then I will point out to them, here's why it's not, and here's what you need to listen for. Because what a lot of those types who will call that monotone, they don't recognize subtlety. They think the only way that you can make something interesting is by talking, either kind of loud or very loud. And they don't.
Yeah, that's me. All right. Yeah,
a lot of them don't recognize, and especially if all you study is anime, you're never going to learn how to pace yourself. You're never going to learn how to make
another big thing.
Super low key, subtle decisions, which sometimes can come through in anime. But I see what a lot of people get fixated on is the big, huge, crazy, wacky action sort of stuff. They'll never learn the sort of dry, sort of witty stuff. Go ahead.
One of the things that I hear is a lot of people say anime dubbing is harder. And, okay, yeah, you got to stay on sync. Everything's all there. I get that. But it's definitely not more creative than standard prelay acting.
Absolutely not.
And it's, I don't know, it's this weird thing, but like people are on this track of, oh, well, it's harder, so that means it's better. And it's not, again, because whenever the character moves its mouth, that's when you have to talk if you're doing ADR. Yeah. And so it's a problem where it's like you can't play with silence. That's the other thing, is that I noticed that people who primarily do ADR, they don't know how to use silence as an actor. I mean, do you know what I'm talking about? Like that, knowing when to pause, knowing when to be quiet. Like how do you sort of convey that to your students?
Well, it's because all your pauses and your gasps and your sort of nonverbal things, those are all written and time coded for you. And I've particularly noticed that a lot of people who only do ADR, only do dubbing, oftentimes the second their character is off screen and they have to still narrate something, they don't know how to pace themselves because it's not written out there for them. other things I'll notice is you can take a lot of people who have never done dubbing before, but once you get them just accustomed to, okay, this is what I'm restricted to, my timing and all that, they can very often still give you a good performance in a dub. You're just taking away a lot of their tools, a lot of their things that they're used to painting with. Whereas you take a dub actor, throw them into prelay, and suddenly they got the opportunity to use all these things that they've never used before, and they don't know what to do with them.